And we go live to Dom, our very own Dominic Aldworth for the sport. Dominic, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, Giles. It's great to be talking to you from now on.
Yes, an all-male sports lineup. So what's been happening sport-wise? What's happening? I mean, it's been a pretty momentous week, you'd have to say.
It's been a fantastic weekend of golf and sports. I mean, we have to begin with the golf as well, Giles, if we can. It's the 39th Ryder Cup. I mean, what can be said about that? I mean, the miracle in Medina, the greatest sporting event on the planet, producing one of the greatest sporting comebacks of all time. You can throw in the spirit of Steve, which was Sevillano Ballesteros, which was certainly felt from Medina all the way to Madrid, inspired by his former teammate and captain, Jose Maria Olazabal. It was just an incredible performance on the single Sunday, Giles. I mean, after the first 2 days, Europe were completely dead and buried, without question. They came into the singles on Sunday morning with a deficit of 10 points to 6 to overturn. Funny enough, on Sunday morning, I was following Twitter, actually, and one of the real heroes of the Ryder Cup, the last 3 Ryder Cups, Ian Poulter, tweeted that he felt that something special was going to happen, and absolutely did it happen. It sure did. And he was one of the headline players, there's no doubt about it. Europe needed to win at least the first 5 of the 6 single matches to get some momentum going, get some belief going, to give them a chance. They did better than that. They won the first 5 of their 5 singles matches. Luke Donald, Ian Poulter, who's now won 11 out of 12 Ryder Cup points in the last 3 Ryder Cups. Rory McIlroy, who turned up 10 minutes before his tee-off time, clinching a win there as well. And Justin Rose, who was unbelievable against Phil Mickelson, 1 down, coming on to the 17th, to overturn that deficit and get a point against the great Phil Mickelson on the 18th hole. And Paul Lawrie finished off the first 5 matches with a point. There was a little bit of a wobble in the middle there of the singles. Both Johnsons and Duffner from America secured 3 points to give the US a slender lead. But the experience of former world number 1, Lee Westwood, drew them level with a 3-2 win against Matt Kuchar, who was out of form pretty much all weekend. One of the big surprises was Sergio Garcia sneaking a point for the Europeans on the 18th after that. Jim Furyk actually gifting him a point, which is a bit of a surprise. All that experience in the bag for Furyk, only to capitulate on that last hole. Pressure counts in this, and there was plenty of pressure then on the last 4 or the last 2 matches. Martin Kamer versus Steve Stricker. Kamer, a former world number 1 PGA major winner as well. And he's German. You always can trust Germans under pressure. It didn't have to get to the last match between Woods and Molinari, which was eventually halved on the 18th. It was Kamer that delivered that crucial point and that crucial win for the Europeans in the Ryder Cup. An unbelievable win by 14.5 points to 13. The Europeans have now won 7 of the last 10 Ryder Cups. It's a stunning statistic there. We've got to wait for 2 more years before the next one, and that's in September 2014 at Gleneagles. But simply a stunning weekend of golf, Giles. And we're just going to stay with golf very briefly. It does continue on the PGA Tour this weekend, and it's the Justin Timberlake Shriners Hospital for Children Open. That's a bit of a mouthful, that one.
Absolutely.
Kevin Na is the defending champion there. Most of the Ryder Cup players, in fact, all of them have decided to give this one a miss after their performances last week, except for the captain of the American side, Davis Love III, that will be taking part. And the European Tour, it's the Alfred Dunhill Links Championship from St Andrews. It's going to be a little bit quiet on the first tee for the likes of Dustin Johnson, Martin Kamer and Paul Lawrie after the noisy crowds of Medina last week. But there's some big names featuring in the Pro-Am as well, which begins today. And that's Ian Botham, who was on my show on the weekend, Shane Warne, Ruud Gullit, Sir Matthew Pinsent, Oscar Pistorius, Bill Murray and the great Michael Phelps. So an action-packed weekend of golf at St Andrews, that's for sure.
Just want to speak to you about that part, the vocal support. What is your feeling, Dom, about this? Because the Americans were very, very vocal, and they're trying to make it as hostile as possible. Do you think that perhaps a line needs to be drawn and said, guys, keep the decibel levels down? Because it did sound like an awful lot of whooping, hollering in that USA chant.
Absolutely. I mean, it certainly was. And this brings me back to 1999. I think they billed it as the Battle of Brookline, and that was the last time when America won, overclawing a very similar deficit, if not the same, I think it was. And the crowd then were exceptionally vocal and at times very aggressive towards the European players. And I just think it's now part and parcel whenever there's a Ryder Cup in America. That's just what's expected of the players, and just reward as well for them to react and to come away with a trophy under that sort of pressure. It is kind of unacceptable in golf. You see it in other sports, and it's not really something you normally see in golf, but it seems to have just become part and parcel of playing the Ryder Cup in America. The players know what to expect when they go there, and certainly they just know how to deliver now.
Again, going back to Poulter, I mean, the three words that I now think when I hear Didier Drogba is big game player, because he came out and, won the European Cup. Poulter, big game player completely, because, I mean, 5 birdies on, the last 5 holes on the Saturday evening.
Unbelievable. I mean, Ian Poulter, what can you say about this guy? I mean, he's a top-class golfer. I don't quite think he's featuring currently in the top 20. He's never really in with a shout, or he's never one name that's mentioned in winning of majors. But when it comes to match play, Giles, the guy is simply one of the best match play players in the world. 11 points he's now taken out of a possible 12 in the last 3 Ryder Cups. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I think that was a big turning point for the Europeans in the afternoon, on Saturday afternoon, with those 5 birdies in the last 5 holes. It actually gave them a belief that they could actually go there with a little bit of help of Seve, a bit of inspiration from Seve as well. But yeah, I mean, one can't describe how important the contribution was of Ian Poulter, no doubt about that.
I was listening to, because I'm not a golfer, but I was listening to on the Sunday evening, this on 5 Live, I think it was, and it was tremendous the way it was building. But I missed the celebrations. Was it emotional? Because I went to bed soon after that. But I didn't catch the Olatabal tribute to Seve. But were there scenes of emotion? Because I remember Darren Clark, obviously, when he played soon after his tragedy.
Well, I've got to be perfectly honest. The moment they clinched it, I turned the telly off because I had to work the next morning bright and early. And, of course, it went late into the night. I did read some reports afterwards. Nicholas Colsaert came out all bleary-eyed after barely an hour or 2 of sleep. So I think there were some major celebrations. And knowing the fact that Darren Clark was there as the vice-captain, I'm sure there was copious amounts of alcohol drunk as well. But I'm sure massively emotional as well. I mean, they literally wore the spirit of Seve, so to speak, on their bags and on their sleeves all weekend, and he was without question one of the main inspirations behind. I mean, of course, him and Jose Maria Lafabelle, the captain, played very successfully as teammates on the Ryder Cup for many, many years. So I'm sure the scenes were very emotional, especially if you consider the comeback of 10 points to 6 down on the final day in America to do what they did.
Greatest comeback of all time, do you think, in golf, Dom?
One of the greatest sporting comebacks of all time, in my opinion, Giles. I mean, really up against it, dead and buried. Man for man, not much between the two teams, but the Americans would have had the edge on recent performances. For me, one of the greatest sporting comebacks of all time, not only in golf. But
probably this is what makes sport so addictive and so watchable, surely, at events like this.
Completely. I mean, it's the greatest team sporting event as well in the world. If you consider that, these guys are playing against themselves in the golf course week in, week out all around the world. And when they come together collectively in a team event, in a non-team event sport, it is what makes it so special.
Okay, moving away from the golf, Dom, what else have we got on?
Well, MotoGP round 15 from Aragon on the weekend, and it's getting down to the wire a little bit here between Danny Pedrosa and Jorge Lorenzo. Pedrosa kept his slender championship hopes alive with his third race winning 4 starts, coming home on his Honda 6.5 seconds ahead of championship leader Jorge Lorenzo. The gap's now close to 33 with 4 races to go. He's going to need a little bit of unreliability from the Yamaha driver if he's going to lift his world championship. The next stop is in Japan. In a week's time. And from 2 wheels to 4 wheels this weekend, I know you like a bit of Formula One. It's round 15. It's the Japanese Grand Prix from the high-speed Suzuka circuit. All the debate surrounding Lewis Hamilton and his future has now been laid to rest. After 14 years with McLaren, 20 race wins and a 2008 World Championship, he signed for Mercedes GP, £60 million over 3 years, replacing Michael Schumacher. This weekend, it's all about Formula One driving and not about Hamilton's future. McLaren are certainly out of the championship race for me, but they have an opportunity to win the Constructors. And Suzuka will certainly suit, the high-speed Suzuka will suit the McLarens. Jenson Button expressed that last year with a win in Suzuka, and this will be very important for their Constructors' aspirations, that's for sure. The race, championship race is very much between 2 double world champions, Fernando Alonso and Sebastian Vettel. 29 points now separating those two. Alonso with the initiative there, and he had the initiative last year as well in Suzuka, finishing second ahead of Sebastian Vettel in third. Jenson Button fans, don't get too excited too soon. He's got a 5 grid penalty to start on the race due to an unscheduled gearbox change, and Michael Schumacher has a 10-place grid penalty for reckless driving a couple of weeks ago in Singapore. But that's the Japanese Grand Prix this weekend, Giles. I know you like a little bit of high speed, and Suzuka's a great circuit for that.
Absolutely. You can't get me off the PlayStation with that one, yes. But also, as well as that, of course, Perez is going to McLaren to be with Button, I believe.
Say that again.
I think Sergio Perez is is now signed to go to McLaren as well.
Absolutely. Well, that news broke immediately after the Hamilton leaving. Sergio Perez going. I think that's a fantastic signing for McLaren. A very talented young driver. It also opens up a really big market for McLaren in sponsorship in Mexico as well. This guy is obviously from Mexico. They're looking at bringing back the Mexican Grand Prix in years to come. Formula One's all about money, and certainly McLaren can earn a few quid down south in Mexico off the back of this talented young driver, no doubt about that.
I know that Bernie was looking at going to Cancun, which is obviously a very popular spot with the Americans on spring break and whatever, so we could have a tequila-fueled Grand Prix down there.
Well, let's just hope that the drivers stay off the tequila until the end of the weekend.
What else is happening, Dom?
Tennis, plenty of tennis going on, and on the ATP Tour over the weekend, Argentine Juan Monaco clinched his 4th title of the year, beating France's Julien Benneteau 7-5, 6-3 in Malaysia. Richard Gasquet broke his 2.5-year winless drought when he beat Gilles Simon 6-2, 6-1 in the Thailand Open in an all-French affair. That was his 7th ATP Tour title. And on the women's tour, world number 3 and defending champion Agnieszka Radwanska was stunned in the final of the Pan-Pacific Open in Tokyo, beaten 6-love, 1-6, 6-3 by Nadia Petrova. The ATP and tennis tour action continues this week in China and Japan, and Andy Murray is back in action since his epic US Open, first title actually, since his epic US Open win against Novak Djokovic at the US Open. And he returns to Tokyo as the defending champion, where he beat Rafael Nadal last year in the final. Incidentally, he also won the doubles with his brother Jamie. So here in Tokyo for Andy Murray. And the main threat for Andy Murray this year will sit Thomas Berdych, the number 2 seed. Rafael Nadal still out injured. Thomas Berdych doing particularly well in the US Open, reaching the semi-finals. I can tell you now today, Murray is safely through to the quarterfinals, beating Lacko 6-1, 6-2 comfortably. His next round opponent in the quarterfinals will be Switzerland's Stanislas Wawrinka. If he manages to get through, it's more than likely he'll play Serbia's Janko Tipsarevic in the semi-finals, who's also been in particularly good form. And in China, as mentioned, the men and women are featuring there, and Novak Djokovic is a twice winner in 2009 and 2010. He's got an 11-0 record in China. He did miss last year's event. David Ferrer has withdrawn, and Joe-Wilfried Tsonga will likely be the candidate to face Djokovic in the final. And then I can tell you in recent, over the last 10 minutes or so, Djokovic has advanced to the quarterfinals with a comfortable win over Berlocq from Brazil. So that's why his record now stands at 11-0 in China. And on the ladies' draw, no big shocks today, but in the first round there's 2 former Grand Slam winners, Samantha Stosa and Petra Kvitova, the former Wimbledon champion, went out in the first round. Agnieszka Radwanska, Sharapova, Kerber and Lina are all safely through.
Also happening over the weekend, of course, cricket. There's a little bit of cricket on at the moment as well.
Well, there has been, yeah. It's been the T20 World Cup. That's the shortest version of the game, and it's in Sri Lanka. We're now reaching the final stages. It's now down to 4 teams. One of the most open tournaments for a long time. Any one of 8 countries could have won it. That's how close it's been. Countries that have gone home yesterday, South Africa, India, New Zealand, and the defending champions, unfortunately, England, are on their way home. But the semi-final lineup looks pretty exciting to me. Australia versus the West Indies. Australia have been in superb form, in particular Shane Watson and David Warner up front. But the West Indies have got their own match winners, no question about that, in Chris Gale and Marlon Samuels. Kieran Pollard in the middle order there can also be quite devastating. I pick Australia to get through in that one. One of the most impressive performers so far has been the hosts, Sri Lanka, who take on Pakistan. That's a mouth-watering prospect for me. Lots of quality spinners in the lineups there, and Ajanta Mendes from Sri Lanka, and the number 1 ranked in T20, Saeed Akmal from Pakistan. I think Sri Lanka will probably have the edge in this one with a bat in hand. After all, it is all about who can score the most runs in 20 overs, and I think in the form of Jaya Wardner and Sangakkara, they've got too much quality and experience to lose this one to Pakistan.
I mean, Sri Lanka have always been... this type of cricket suits their game immensely, isn't it? They've always been fat boys with bats, let's face it. So, should be good fun.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the T20 is a great format. I'm a bit of a traditionalist myself. I prefer the 5-day format, but this certainly has brought a lot of entertainment and a lot of revenue into cricket as well, which was much needed. It's boosted the profile of the sport, and in countries like Sri Lanka, we've always known that they can play cricket on the subcontinent, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. But Sri Lanka, for me, have been mightily impressive, and it's been a nice little advert for them from a tourist point of view as well to host such a great event.
And finally, coming up, the footballs, the 2 footballs, Association Football and Rugby Union. What's happening there?
Well, we'll start with rugby. I know that you're a rugby man. I prefer that shape ball, so we might as well quickly rattle through some of the Aviva Premiership results on the weekend. A couple of big ones there as well. Harlequins lost their unbeaten record to Saracens, the 2010 champions. 16 points to 18. Saracens reigniting their championship credentials. Number 10, Owen Farrell. England standoff as well. Man of the match performance there from him. Northampton Saints were top of the table, 24 points to 6 against Wasps. The only unbeaten side now left in the Aviva Premiership. There were also wins for Gloucester, Leicester, Bath, and over Sale. That is Sale, who have yet to win a game this season. Danny Cipriani scratching his head what he's doing, signing for Sale. Worcester also winners there. Some big matches this weekend. All the big contenders are away from home. Tigers at Sale, Northampton at London Irish, Harlequins at Exeter, and Saracens at London Welsh. I expect all 4 of those to come away victories there. On the Rabo Pro 12 Direct League, Ulster cemented their place at the top of the league table there with a comprehensive 48 points to 19 victory over Cardiff. Connaught stunned Leinster, 34 points to 16, their second defeat of the season. Very unlike Leinster. Same with Munster, 2 defeats for them so far this season. They lost to Ospreys, 30 points to 15. There were wins for Treviso, Glasgow and the Dragons as well. And we have to mention the Rugby Championship. It's another win for New Zealand. The world champions defeating Argentina on the weekend, 54 points to 15, and clinching the newly reformed Rugby Championship, which is obviously the old Tri-Nations and now featuring Argentina. So the world champions New Zealand, again, being in unbelievable form. 17 test matches now unbeaten. If they defeat South Africa on the weekend, that will be a new record. South Africa defeated Australia comfortably, 31 points to 8 against Australia. It's a bit of a dead rubber this weekend, but can you ever say that when South Africa play against New Zealand?
Absolutely not. And what do you think? Do you think, as from the Southern Hemisphere, do you think it's been a success, this tournament?
Very much so. Other than that result on the weekend with Argentina coming unstuck against, quite simply the best rugby team in the world, they've really held their own. A draw against South Africa in Mendoza. They took us close in South Africa. They were leading for 65 minutes against Australia in Australia. They had a 1-point deficit at half-time against New Zealand in New Zealand, only to lose by 15-odd points. They certainly haven't been the whipping boys of the competition. I just think one thing that they will need to address is their depth, and certainly in their front row, their forwards have always been their great strength. Unfortunately, their front row is now ageing, and they really need to be finding some world-class or international-class replacements for them, which they seem to lack in the depth of their squad. But this will come. This will come with exposure. This will come with constant test match rugby against the nations likes of Australia, New Zealand and South Africa. But a great success from an Argentinian point of view and from Southern Hemisphere rugby point of view as well.
And finally, of course, football. Soccer, as the Americans call it.
Yeah, well, football, soccer, we'll round off with a little bit of that, Giles, and we'll begin with in Spain. Real Madrid are getting their league season slowly but surely back on track with a 5-0 thrashing of Deportivo La Coruña on the weekend. They've now moved up to 6th place in the lead. A Ronaldo hat-trick there, the main contributor. Barcelona had to come from behind against Sevilla to defeat them 3-2. Cesc Fabregas helping himself to a brace of goals, and David Villa on the score sheet there. That's 6 wins from 6 for Barcelona. Malaga continue on their merry way. A 4-0 victory against Betis at the La Rosaleda Stadium. They remain in 3rd place, 4 points behind Barcelona. Great start to the season for Malaga. This weekend in La Liga, Atletico Madrid versus Malaga in Madrid, 2nd versus 3rd place. This is a real test for Malaga. Falcao, the Colombian hotshot up in front of goal. If they can keep him quiet, they've got a good chance. And we have to mention on Sunday, the first installment in La Liga this year of El Clasico, Barcelona versus Real Madrid. The names roll off the tongue there. It's bound to be passionate. We've seen what happened in the Super Cup. A victory for Barcelona in the Camp Nou, a victory for Real Madrid at the Santiago Bernabeu. It's a tough one to call, but I think Barcelona will probably take victory on the weekend this time round for me. Let's move on to the Premiership. In the London derby on the weekend, Chelsea cemented their place at the top of the Premiership with a 2-1 win against Arsenal. There were also wins for Everton, City, Sunderland and Stoke. Liverpool registered their first victory of the season, 5-2 over Stoke City. United, unfortunately, came unstuck for the first time in 23 years. Stuart Joseph asked me to mention this one. He's a Spurs fan. Great result there for Spurs at Old Trafford, their first win in 23 years. 3-2 there. The table, Chelsea 16, Everton, great start to the season for them, 13, United 12, Manchester City 12 and Spurs on 11 there. The Champions League began again last night and continues tonight. There were wins for Chelsea and Manchester United away from home. Barcelona also won away from home against Benfica, 2-0. That's the first time they've managed to come away from the points from Lisbon with a point in 3 attempts. Juventus and Shakhtar Donetsk drew 1 goal apiece. 7th consecutive European draw there for Juventus. Valencia continued against the struggling Lille, 2-0. Galatasaray back in the competition for the first time in 7 years, came unstuck at home, 2-0 against Braga. Great result for Celtic there. 3-2 in Spartak Moscow, and in Moscow against Spartak Moscow. Tremendous result there for Celtic. And Bayern Munich started the season with 6 wins from 6. That didn't happen last night. Barté coming out on top against Bayern Munich in a shock result, 3-1. That's 2 wins for Barté from 2 in Europe. The first time incidentally they've ever won in Europe in the Champions League. The Champions League action continues tonight. Just a couple of fixtures here to give you. Zenit St. Petersburg host AC Milan, currently going through their worst start to their Serie A campaign in 80 years. English champions against German champions, and Manchester City welcome Borussia Dortmund to Eastlands. Ajax host Real Madrid, Arsenal against Olympiacos, Porto against the big spending Paris Saint-Germain, and Malaga make their first away trip of the Champions League campaign to Anderlecht.
Dom, thanks for that. Of course, we can catch you as normal with the Sports Bar on Friday.
Absolutely, yeah, and I will have the company on my show on the telephone of England's new recruit for the Test Series against India, Nick Compton, who replaces Andrew Strauss, opening the batting up front there for England. And Nick will be talking to me at the age of 29 years old, making his England debut in India. So looking forward to having Nick on the show. Okay, super. And that's going out at 7 o'clock, I believe, on Friday, yeah? That's it, Giles. From 7 till 8. Great to speak to you, mate. And, you know, this could be the start, as they say, this could be the start of a beautiful friendship. Thanks for your time, Dom, and we'll see you on Friday. You're most welcome. Cheers, Giles. Take care.